Now, a lot of people are huge fans of the Super Mario Galaxy games, and I get why. They had a lot to offer in terms of gameplay elements. Each game was filled to the brim with stuff to do and see. Each planet and level was unique compared to the one that came before. In a lot of ways, it was really a masterpiece, and it was playing around with concepts that we had never seen before in the world of gaming, and especially not in platformers. But even though we got a second game shortly after the first, people have been asking for a third title for ages. I see them in my comment section again and again and again. People really want a new Galaxy game even after all these years. And so today I will talk about it to make all of you a lot happier. So, will we ever see a new game? And what could they do with it? Well, let's find out. Now, Super Mario Galaxy is a 3D action-adventure platformer game for the Wii, and was released in November 2007, with the second one coming out around 3 years later. And like we all know, these games take place in deep space, and most of the game's levels consist of many smaller planets, and also bigger ones that you need to explore, going from planet to planet. Now, in the end, the game sold nearly 13 million copies, and the second title did add a couple million more. So clearly the games were a huge success, and Nintendo made loads of money off of these titles. However, is there any chance we will ever see a third Galaxy? Well, in order to get an idea, we will have to look at the development of the second title. Why did they even make another game? If we know that answer, then we can get an idea if a third game will ever happen. Now, the development of Super Mario Galaxy 2 started as soon as the first Super Mario Galaxy was released. So clearly Nintendo jumped on this quick. And there was actually a good reason for all of that. Now, many of the ideas were based on those shown in the very first game, and they wanted to kind of build on it as well as alter certain levels by moving or adding new stars in them. And because of that, the project was initially called Super Mario Galaxy 1.5. So clearly they wanted to make an alternate version. They did this with Ocarina of Time as well. This game got a version called Master Quest, which was the same game in a lot of ways. But in the end, they just added some more stuff to this version, as well as remixing the dungeons seen in the game. And some other things that I might have forgotten about. And it looks like Nintendo had the same idea when it comes to Super Mario Galaxy, but in the end they changed their plans. During the development of this new version, they changed their plans completely. After a year, Miyamoto realized that the new game was beginning to overflow with new elements and ideas. And because of that, the team decided to create a real Super Mario Galaxy sequel, rather than a new version of the original installment. And this lasted 2.5 years. In the end, the game was revealed at E3 2009, along with New Super Mario Bros. Wii, and was released a year after, so it wouldn't steal the spotlight of the new Super Mario Bros. Title. Now, according to Shigeru Miyamoto, 90% of the features in the game would be new, whereas the remaining 10% were already introduced or featured in the original. One of those new things was the inclusion of Yoshi, and also the use of the drill to open up and drill through stages. Aside from that, Miyamoto stated in an interview that he wanted to go with as little story as possible for Super Mario Galaxy 2. Clearly, the development of this game was a bit strange. All of it was a bit confusing. They wanted to make some sort of Master Quest version, but in the end it became a complete standalone game. However, there's one important thing to take away from all of this. Originally, they didn't really want to make a sequel. It really wasn't the plan from the beginning. And usually, Nintendo will make another game if they have too many ideas for some kind of simple DLC pack. This happened with Breath of the Wild as well. When it comes to that game, Nintendo had ideas for DLC and made that. But in the end, they had even more ideas, and because of that, they decided to make a whole sequel. In a lot of ways, it was similar to Super Mario Galaxy 2. The only difference is the game, and the fact that DLC wasn't really possible back then. But sadly enough, this does mean that the chances of Super Mario Galaxy 3 are quite, low. And that's because Nintendo hasn't thought about these games in ages. It looks like direct sequels only happen when they are working on it, and are left with too many ideas that they actually want to use. But they haven't even touched these games in in ages, and so the chances of a new title are quite low. However, here on this channel we love to speculate about stuff that will never happen. Well, probably at least. So, what could we see in a third Galaxy game? Well, a lot actually, and let's start at the end of the second game. You gotta remember that the end of the first title had a big impact on the second game, so it's a logical place to start. Well, at the end of that game, you just beat Bowser, give the baby Luma to Rosalina, and go home using the old Mario starship. So there isn't really any setup for a new title. Unlike the first, where a completely new galaxy was created. And thanks to this, you probably have to add some of the old planets that we saw in the second game. It could even turn into some sort of fun remixed version of the second. So you would visit old locations, but things would be different. Very different. But that could actually be a fun thing. I would love to see some of them return, for example the planet where you encounter the bee people. But what could they add when it comes to gameplay concepts? Well, I've come up with some cool ideas. Well, when it comes to gameplay, there's one thing they could add that would be very different, but also fun in a lot of ways. Do you remember the honeybees seen in worlds like Honey Bloom Galaxy? Well, they could be used to create a fun little segment. Nintendo is known for adding all kinds of weird things in their games, like slides, minigames, and more. So why not add a segment where you fly on the back of a honeybee, or use some sort of upgraded version of the bee mushroom? You already fly around a lot when going from planet to planet, so why not add some sort of small segment or level where you can actually fly? Back in the day you had auto-scrolling shooter games, and Nintendo even added such segments to Mario titles. We saw it in Super Mario Land, for example, and personally I love that. And we did sort of see that again in levels like the Wild Glide Galaxy. But there's one problem with it. Those portions are very linear and there are no real dangers. So I think it's about time that Nintendo added a new flying segment where you must collect special coins to unlock a star. But while doing so, you're being attacked by an army of other insect enemies that want to eat you. And the whole area would be very open, and you could go almost anywhere. Heck, they could even create something like this inside of a hive that's under attack by invading insects. Which is a thing that happens in real life. And aside from that, another thing that could work is a small spaceship. Then you could give the player the ability to shoot, which would also be cool. With something like that, you could even create a space fight or something. Now another concept that would be cool to see is a different twist on the supermassive galaxy. Instead of everyone around you being huge, you're the big one and everyone else is small, including a lot of the planets. So in a way, it would be like combining the Mega Mushroom and gameplay elements of Super Mario Galaxy, which can lead to some fun scenarios. For example, you can put all kinds of enemies and buildings on these planets, which you can crush. This would already be really cool. You would feel like some sort of gigantic god destroying civilizations. And obviously, Nintendo could do more with this concept. Heck, they could even allow the player to destroy or shoot planets. And we've actually seen something like that in the second game. But now we can use it in a different way. In the second title, you come across meteorites, which you can use to your advantage. These round golden balls have a ground pound switch symbol on them. And you know what that means. You can jump into the air near a meteorite, which will automatically attract him via its gravitational pull. And once you're on the meteorite, you must position yourself in exactly the right place and do a ground pound to launch it towards a target. And this mechanic is used to break certain things and during the boss battle with Bowser in the game. And I bet Nintendo could bring this back, but this time on a bigger scale. Instead of shooting meteorites, you do this with actual planets, which would be a very unique concept, and it could be used for all kinds of things. But obviously, it would have to be different from the meteorites. Otherwise, it would just be reusing the same mechanic over and over. So it must innovate in some way. But knowing Nintendo, that won't really be a problem. Nintendo comes up with new twists all the time. Now, will we ever see any of these ideas or Super Mario Galaxy 3? Well, the chances are quite low. Like I said, Nintendo doesn't think about these games anymore, which means the chances of anything happening are near zero. To be honest, the sequel to Super Mario Odyssey is way more likely. They didn't release any real DLC for it after all, so that probably means that they were working on something like this, but in the end it all became too big, and so they started to work on a full sequel. But I guess we will get more information on all of that soon. E3 is on the horizon after all, and me along with other YouTubers have been starving because they basically haven't released anything in ages. But let me know in the comments down below what you think of my ideas. And don't forget to leave a like. It really helps me a lot. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe, leave that like because it's very important for the algorithm, and tell me down below what you think.